Morning. We were just awaiting Mrs. Gordon Harrison's arrival, but Dr. Karen Carpenter, she was one of our presenters at the 2024 Caribbean Regional Forum. Would you like to introduce yourself, Dr. Carpenter?
Good morning. Happy to be here, Karen Carpenter, University of the West Indies, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot from you all. Thank you. Good morning.
Thanks so much, Dr. Carpenter. Janelle Jones, that name is so very familiar, and I'm sure I met you at the Caribbean Regional Forum, in Jamaica. Would you like to introduce yourself, Janelle? Okay, Janelle may have stepped away. Leah Miles.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Leah.
My name is Leah Miles, and I am the clinical psychologist acting for the Victim Services branch, a branch in the Social Justice Division in the Ministry of Justice. And I'm here to learn.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, Leah. Jasmine Pierce. Are you there, Jasmine? We can ask Christina Davy then.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Christina Webb Davy. I'm from ONRTIP and I'm the research analyst. Pleasure to be here.
Nice to have you, Christina. Karen Ascarali, one of my sisters. How are you, Karen?
Hello, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very well, Adrian. Thank you for the invitation to this much needed program today.
My pleasure, Karen. Cherise Ferguson, we are so happy to have Cherise. She is from Belize, so she is the westernmost participant for today's forum. Cherise, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Cherise Ferguson from RET International in Belize, like Adrian rightly said. Under one of our projects, we had formed the HD Coalition here in Belize. And so I'm very interested in learning today and having an opportunity to provide input wherever I can in today's discussion. Thanks for the invite, Adrian.
Thanks so much, Cherise. Let's see if Janelle has returned. Janelle Jones.
She commented in the chat.
Oh. Okay, let me check. Thanks so much, Cherise. Okay. Janelle, okay, she does not have a microphone. She's a strategic analyst within the Ministry of National Security in Jamaica. Jasmine Pierce. Is Jasmine here?
Hi, Adrian. Jasmine is also with ONRTIP. She is having some issues, yes. So she's our administrative assistant.
Okay,
she's having some issues with her microphone.
Okay, not a problem. Well, I'll just provide an update on the coalition for those of you who may have attended the launch last July, just to give you some feedback as to what has been happening. So our leadership structure for the coalition has changed a bit since last July. So we've simplified things with a leadership committee and 5 standing committees, in addition to the secretariat. As I mentioned, Free the Slaves is the secretariat of the coalition. So we're here to provide support wherever possible and to ensure that things can go as smoothly as they can, as we just provide that type of infrastructure, doing things similar to, I guess, what Ugona would have done with CHRI for the Commonwealth 8.7 network. In addition, we do have these standing committees. Our Survivor Committee was renamed to Survivor Engagement and Advocacy. And we've added a wonderful survivor who is well known globally and her name is Shamir Mackenzie. She is from the beautiful island of Jamaica. She's, I think, the first appointed anti-trafficking ambassador for Jamaica. Our membership committee looks at things like developing our newsletter, website, and so forth. Our advocacy committee is creating position statements on various issues and an advocacy strategy so that we can engage with national and regional stakeholders, especially government agencies. Our research committee is headed by two of our academics on the leadership committee, and they're currently looking at some research that would bring some focus not only to Caribbean, but also African or West African survivors of trafficking and how they are being treated within the legal system in the United Kingdom, as well as doing other research that focuses more on what's happening regionally. And our training committee is up and running and developing its own schedule for training for the remainder of this year. Our leadership committee members come from across the region. We have Dr. Sharice Francis from Barbados, Neil Backus from Guyana, Diahann Gordon Harrison of Jamaica, Sandra Christie Brown, an amazing survivor leader from Jamaica, Murphylas James from St. Lucia, Dr. Jason Haynes, one of our academic and researchers from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we also have Renee Batiste from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, representing Sir Optimus International Caribbean Network, Charmaine Gandhi Andrews, a consultant and subject matter expert from Trinidad and Tobago, Andreina Briceño Ventura Brown from Venezuela, now residing here in Trinidad and Tobago, doing great work through her NGO, La Casita Hispanic Cultural Center. Smith Maxime, he is our liaison for Haiti, and he now is co-executive director of the NGO Beyond Borders. And Shamir Mackenzie, who I mentioned to you, phenomenal survivor leader, consultant, and subject matter expert with ONRTIP as our chair. When we had the launch, we were contemplating several projects. So these are a regional prevention action plan with Charmaine Gandhi Andrews as project lead, a regional resource hub with ONRTIP as project lead, and Gordon Harrison leading that initiative, which is why we're here today. Regional stakeholder mapping is another project, and we had our first consultation for that in late February. Dr. Sharice Francis is spearheading that particular project. The Regional Speakers Bureau is something that we saw a dire need for, especially because many persons are being invited, especially survivors are being invited to speak in different fora. And we want to ensure that there's a proper framework so that they are engaged in a trauma-informed way and respectful way with appropriate remuneration. And the Regional Counter-Trafficking Conferences Project, which is headed by myself on behalf of Free the Slaves. So these are the 5 initial projects that we are executing. As I mentioned, the regional stakeholder mapping has already kicked off. And today it's our pleasure to kick off the Regional Resource Hub project. We also now have a quarterly publication. So some of you who are on our mailing list may have received that link earlier this month. So it's something that you may be able to take a chance and read, or if you've not yet had an opportunity to take a look at it, you can access it at this link, that I just put in the chat. As I mentioned, our regional stakeholder mapping project has already kicked off. And after the consultation in February, an anonymous survey was developed so that individuals who have not yet contributed to that survey can feel free to do so. And I'll put a link to that in the chat right now. Dr. Sharice Francis, as I mentioned, is spearheading that. So in addition to the anonymous survey, she'll be doing key informant interviews with persons from across the region. If you check the chat, the link to that survey has just been placed there. So in addition to the newsletter, we have also developed a YouTube channel and have 2 podcasts that we're operating. One is Caribbean Connections, where we engage with stakeholders who are not yet members of the coalition and have discussions with them on the type of work that they're doing, the value of that work to the region as a whole, and for some, how entities may be willing to collaborate with them on some of the work that they're doing. So far, we've released a podcast episode from the UNODC, where we were having a discussion on the recently published 2024 Global Trafficking in Persons Report and its implications for the Caribbean. Our Member Spotlight is another podcast series that we're running, and we've had quite a few of our members sit down and have short interviews with us. So in both instances, interviews are under 30 minutes generally, so that it's something that you can digest when you're having lunch or on your way home or in the gym, just to listen and to learn something new. So Member Spotlight is another podcast that you can access from our YouTube channel. And our website has also been launched, and it's available at ccatip.org. And you can make contact with us at the Secretariat if you have any further questions in relation to coalition. All right. So with that, I will recognize the arrival of the chair of the coalition, and that is none other than Mrs. Diahann Gordon-Harrison, National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons of Jamaica. Hello, Diahann. How are you doing? Are you able to hear me,
I
Diahann?
just realized I was muted. Yes, I just realized I was muted.
Oh,
No, I was just saying good afternoon to you, Adrian, and of course to all of the stakeholders and interested persons who are online with us on the platform this afternoon. I want to welcome you to this consultation and to thank Adrian certainly for giving that very useful overview of the work of CCATIP and the various areas of interest up to this point. So thank you very much for the welcome, and it's good to be here.
great to see you as always, Diahann. Before we hand over to you, I think some of you may know Diahann, several of her colleagues from Jamaica and in the counter-trafficking space, but for those to whom Diahann is a new face and a new voice, I'd just like to read a brief bio. Mrs. Diahann Gordon-Harrison has been the Children's Advocate of Jamaica since January of 2012 and has been Jamaica's National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons since March of 2015, making her the first to hold such a position in the Latin American and Caribbean region. She's an attorney at law by profession with over 20 years of experience and has practiced at the public bar since she graduated from the Norman Manley Law School. Before she was appointed Children's Advocate, Mrs. Gordon-Harrison served as a Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, then the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Known for her advocacy skills, she states that her current roles provide a national and regional platform from which to promote the rights of children and other people in vulnerable circumstances from a victim-centered and rights-based orientation. Diahann is also passionate about accountability frameworks through which persons who violate the rights of children and vulnerable persons can be held responsible for their actions. So without further ado, I would love to hand over to none other than Mrs. Diahann Gordon-Harrison. Over to you, Diahann.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Stakeholders, again, your interest in the anti-trafficking work throughout the region is appreciated. And so your time is very valuable. And so we really want to thank you for having joined us. Now, the agenda has indicated that my task at this time is to provide an overview of the Regional Resource Hub project. Adrian, in his overview, would have shared with you that the coalition, the Caribbean Coalition Against Trafficking in Persons, takes on different projects and really pursues different initiatives to advance anti-human trafficking work and gains throughout the region. And so within that spirit, one of the projects that we have thought it was reasonable and appropriate to do was this project that focuses on the Regional Resource Hub. Now, I'm going to do a very brief presentation, which will give you an idea of what this whole conversation is about and what the Regional Resource Hub seeks to achieve and our objectives as a part of the work of CCA-TIP. And at this point, I am going to either ask for permission, Adrian, to share slides, or I don't know if you have it queued. I'm not hearing, you're muted.
My apologies. I will share from my end.
Okay, all right.
Mhm. Okay. Confirming that it's visible.
No, not yet.
Oh,
Yes, now it is.
all right, great.
It is, I'm seeing slide number 1. All right, we'll get right into the presentation. All right, so if you can move to the next slide, please, Adrian, that takes us a little bit beyond the topic. All right, so first of all, this is not just a presentation of stakeholders, it is actually a consultation. And the purpose of this consultation is really to see how we can incorporate your views, sensitize you, of course, to what the online resource library does, but very importantly, increase the usability and the reference points that you can glean from the human trafficking, the resource library, which we're hoping that it can become more of a regional hub. So first, let's talk about what is the Office of the National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons Human Trafficking Online Resource Library. So this library, as the name suggests, is an online platform that is digitally available once you have internet access. It was created in collaboration with the Warnock Group out of the United States of America, who was one of the implementing partners under the Jamaica USA Child Protection Compact Partnership Agreement, which really saw very heavy investment by the US government to the government of Jamaica with a very advanced focus on child trafficking in particular. One of the benefits, however, is that even though the compact really focused on child trafficking primarily, there are lots of legacy benefits for general anti-human trafficking efforts. And so the online resource library is one of those legacy achievements. And this library was officially launched in September of 2020 by the Office of the National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons, which of course is in Jamaica. The library, very importantly, is a free and user-friendly resource that provides a comprehensive collection of reliable publications, research findings, reports, news articles, legislation, and a host of other resources that are related to human trafficking. Now, the beauty about it is this is all accessible with just a click for anyone who is interested in learning more. And you will see on the slide that we have the website addresses that you can access the library through. Both of them are there. For those of you who can't see it well, I'll just read it. It is Jamaica, so HTTPS, of course, // two of them, JamaicaNationalRapporteur.wordpress.com, or the easier one is HTTPS // JamaicaONRTIP.com. Now, I encourage you in your own time, post this consultation perhaps, to visit the online resource library and see the kind of information that it carries. What we can say definitively is that since its launch in September of 2020, we have had visitors from perhaps every single continent who have visited the library and who have made use of the resources thereon. Now, what then is the rationale for a regional resource hub? If you could move to that slide, please. Adrian, this is the rationale. The resource hub that we're here consulting with you about today as the coalition aims to identify and address gaps in information, service, and support. It also aims to centralize access to human trafficking resources across the region. The hub aims to build regional collaboration and partnerships, and also to enhance awareness and education on the topic of human trafficking. The other slide speaks about the objectives of the Regional Resource Hub project. And this is where the consultation is particularly important, because if we hear from you what is your reality on the ground, then of course this will help us to make the hub more relevant to your needs and also the goals that you have locally within your particular contexts. So the objectives of the hub or of this particular project: one, to identify stakeholders' needs and expectations from the regional resource hub. So how can we have the hub serve you better? Also, we aim to define the scope and services and to therefore identify information gaps and opportunities in the existing platform. We also want, through this consultation, to identify and map all relevant and available resources within the region. So again, this is calling upon your local expertise in the countries from which you originate, or in the particular sectors in which you have your predominant experience, to help us to identify what resources you know of in your particular locale. We also want to foster a heightened coordination and collaboration among the various stakeholders. We know in the anti-human trafficking world that collaboration and coordination are particularly important to being successful. Human trafficking is a very nebulous concept, and it involves individuals who are very hell-bent, if you will, on creating havoc. And so they are particularly innovative. Human trafficking is very dynamic. It continues to unfold in ways sometimes before the laws and practices can keep a pace. So it means that those persons involved in anti-human trafficking work need to collaborate very effectively and smartly, and to coordinate efforts if we're to achieve any realistic gains. And of course, the other objective, which we have listed here as the fifth one, is to design effective communication strategies aimed at promoting awareness of the hub. Because if we're building out a hub that has resources that are supposed to be useful for members of the Caribbean region, then it means we need to build awareness that this resource exists, so that anti-human trafficking stakeholders throughout the region can benefit from the resources thereon. Next slide, please, Adrian. What then are the 4 phases of the project as we have identified them up to this point? Phase 1 is to conduct an assessment of stakeholder needs and expectations via surveys, interviews, and focus groups. We want to target various stakeholders across the English-speaking Caribbean, again, so that we can harness what your realities are, so that the hub is being responsive and relevant to those realities. Phase 2 contemplates a current state analysis, if you will, of the existing human trafficking online resource library platform, because we want to hear your views as to whether or not you recognize any gaps, and if there are any recommendations that you may have to plug those gaps, or in other ways to enhance the usability of the online resource library, because this is the springboard from which we will launch or hope to launch the regional resource hub. Phase 3 contemplates a resource mapping exercise, and we hope to do this through a committee that will be established to vet resources from suggested English-speaking Caribbean territories. So that again, we know where the resources are, we can collate them and have them housed on the hub for easy access by stakeholders across the region. And phase 4 focuses on the ongoing update and maintenance of the resource platform. And the consideration at this time, and I've just listed it here, is for the development of a customized page or a designated tab on the current online resource library website that persons across the region will know is the dedicated Caribbean page, so to speak, in terms of resources from the Caribbean or resources that may be beneficial to the anti-human trafficking agenda within the Caribbean. Next slide, please. What then are the next steps? If you are to help us to identify gaps and recommend ways of enhancing, we encourage you to visit the ONRTIP's Human Trafficking Resource Library using any of the links that I shared on the first slide. We ask you also to complete our stakeholder assessment survey, which Adrian will take you to the link, and also give us the feedback in real time so that this information can be implemented within a framework that is not too protracted. We ask as well that you recommend other stakeholders to us who may be producing human trafficking research, publications, or who may have access to relevant resources whom we have not yet been in contact with. So I invite you to look at the participants who are on this consultation call with you. And if you know of any stakeholders who are absent, who you think would be very valuable contributors because of their work in the anti-human trafficking space, we are very open to receiving those contacts. And we, of course, will have that discussion with them so that we can bring them into the fold to make the consultations that we need to conduct that much more effective and that much more useful, because the broader the consultation among persons who work in the field is, the more effective I believe the outcomes will be, because we'd have received a very broad set of ideas, recommendations, and observations that, you know, will enrich the work that we're trying to advance. And here we are at the end of the presentation, but I ask you at this point to just indicate whether you have any questions, or if at this point there are any thoughts at the forefront of your minds on the prospect of this sort of engagement and the usefulness of it. Thank you for your attention, and I remain available. And Adrian, I don't know if you'll assist with identifying any hands that may be raised or any comments that may be put in the chat that would be a part of the open forum discussion at this stage.
Thank you so very kindly, Diahann. Everyone can visit the chat. I put a link to what you see on the screen as a QR code that will take you directly to the assessment survey. So if you click on it in the chat, you'll be able to access it, and please feel free to share the link with other stakeholders. So if you have any questions, kindly use the raise hand function, or as it's a relatively small group, you can possibly unmute, and we can take your questions in order. Your presentation was crystal clear, Diahann. Everyone is 100% understanding what was happening. Does anyone have any questions? Any comments? Cherise Ferguson?
I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation and comment that I really think it's the project is a good one for the creation of this regional resource hub, because a lot of times, well, from my experience, when we're looking for information and best practices and so forth, you know, it's majority from the US or in other regions, and so to have this like a one-stop location for a region, I think is good. And especially with building the collaboration and partnerships, because we have similar type demographics and so forth. And so I really think this is something that can help to strengthen the work that we do in our individual countries, as well as how we can forge stronger partnerships across the region in our aim to, you know, to combat trafficking. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity. I've already taken note of the links and will definitely complete the assessments, so that, you know, from Belize, and I'm only one individual or entity in Belize, but I'll definitely share as well with my colleagues.
Thank you so very much, Cherise.
Yeah.
If you check on your screen, I'm sharing now the web page for the existing resource library that Diahann spoke about on the ONRTIP website. So you see that it's well structured. You have research on trafficking in persons that you could click through. And you have the research library, Jamaica and the Caribbean, or global trafficking research methods and ethics, which is so important. It's something that's really gaining a lot of attention in recent years, that we have to ensure that as we are doing research, especially in this space, that we are following various ethical principles, especially because many of the persons with whom we would engage may have had some form of trafficking experience. Let's see what's in here: Jamaica and the Caribbean. So this gives us an investigation into the state's response to trafficking in persons in Jamaica, baseline studies, study of female sex worker client types and risk of behavior, exploratory assessment. I remember this from the IOM, this particular image. And of course, global. Different types of research that will be taking place on assistance and reintegration, identification of trafficking victims, literature reviews and bibliographies, trafficking for both sexual and labor exploitation, as well as child trafficking. And this is so rare, research on traffickers. I think we need to do a lot more of this type of research, especially in our region, to know who the perpetrators are, now to truly address not only what they do, but how can we reduce the likelihood of some people becoming perpetrators. And again, learning as much as we can really does assist in this. Different types of trafficking that are not just sexual or labor, but for forced marriage, domestic work, in the fishing industry. And here, beyond the prevention, we have prosecution. How can we improve on the prosecutions in our region? Because this is certainly an area of weakness for some of our Caribbean jurisdictions, you know, prevention and general tip research. So I see that this is a model and a great model from which to begin, because in many of our jurisdictions, we have dedicated legislation or a body of legislation around the criminal code, which speaks to the issue of trafficking. So that is something I see can be done here, even with this type of a map of our region, where you can click on it and get the relevant legislation for the particular territory in the Caribbean, as well as being able to call on individuals who may have done work, NGOs that are doing different types of work, survivor-led NGOs as well, and include that type of information in the resource hub. So Diahann, thank you so much for your presentation. I know we should have a couple other questions, but I wanted people to get a visual of what you have been doing. All right.
Yes.
And this is nothing new for you. You're just trying a thing, as you would say in Trinidad, but you've done this and you've been doing this for several years. And it's an opportunity to expand on that work and really bring other Caribbean territories into the discussion and having them share resources that are being developed there. Yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? And is anything else you would like to add?
Nothing else at this point. I would like an opportunity, though. I'm not sure if you're going to take it at this agenda point, but certainly to just do a quick overview of the data collection instrument that will guide the survey. I see you had put up the QR code on the screen. I just wanted to just say a few quick words about the what to expect when going through the survey document.
Okay, sure. Would you like to share your screen to do that?
Not
Or
really.
Or just
Not
discuss,
really.
or just
Yeah.
discuss the instrument.
Right, just a brief overview in terms of the length of time it will take approximately, and just the broad categories that we're seeking to cover through the instrument. May I go ahead?
Of course.
Okay, all right, thank you. So first of all, stakeholders, it does not propose to delay you for very long. We have estimated that it will take about 30 minutes to complete the instrument. And of course, as said in the presentation this morning, the aim is really just to get information that will help us to identify your specific needs and expectations of the hub so that it will be responsive to what those needs are. With most survey documents, certainly in terms of how we operate and the ethical considerations, it will be kept confidential. That's the information that you provide. And also there will be no identifying information that is attributed to you, so you can feel very comfortable that it is truly a confidential space, and what you share will only be assessed to help us to make the tool more effective based on your needs. There are 4 broad areas that the survey document seeks to cover. We collect background information only because we want to know what the needs are in particular areas. So of course, we'll ask you things like, what country are you from? And what stakeholder group do you belong to? Are you an NGO? Do you work with civil society, government, etc.? And then we move into the stakeholder needs. What are your needs on the ground? What specific services or anti-trafficking resources do you think should be prioritized on the regional level so that we can include that on the hub? We speak about also, are there any gaps that the hub can plug in terms of helping to bridge any challenges that you face within your local area or broadly within the English-speaking Caribbean? And then we also speak about the type of survival support services that exist in your country, and how can the hub be more responsive to the survivor voice in the resources that we have. Then we speak about very critically partnership and seek to identify from your perspective the main barriers or limitations that may hinder effective collaboration among stakeholders, and also any existing networks, importantly, that you are aware of or are particularly involved with, or effective partnerships that could be leveraged for resource mapping, because again, we want to make the resources available and centralized. And then, of course, we ask you not just about your current needs and recommendations, but what you anticipate some of your future needs may be, and therefore, what are some of the medium to long-term recommendations that you would want us to take into consideration, so that any additional resources or services that need to be included in the hub are identified, or at least a system is created or a mechanism through which we can be forward thinking in terms of the types of material that we'll seek to have housed on the hub. And that essentially is it. So there are 4 broad areas, 30 minutes of your time, but that time will be so valuably spent because it will give us information that we will need to make the hub meet your expectations and address the needs that you may wish it to cover. So that's it. And I really commend you to just giving us the 30 minutes of your time by scanning the QR code and also just assisting us. We're asking, of course, that the form be completed by 4 p.m. Eastern Time, but on Friday, the 16th of May. So not too much time in terms of it being protracted, because we want to have the momentum continue on this initiative. So thank you again. And of course, if there are any questions or any clarification, you can raise them now, or if you need time to consider, feel free to reach out to us through our contact information that I know Adrian will share in a moment, if he hasn't done so already, so that we can have that discussion. Thank you. Adrian?
Great. Thanks so much. My mute unmute button was just giving me some trouble there. Thanks so much, Diane. So for those of you who have not had a chance to scan it as yet, this is the QR code. And I did put the link, which is this link here, in the chat. So if you're not seeing it, please let me know and I can repeat the link in the chat. This is the contact information that Diane mentioned for the Office of the National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons, their phone number, email address, website, and of course the website for the resource directory. If anyone has any questions based on what Diane would have shared from the instrument, please ask. Okay. And it seems that you've been extremely thorough.
I'm saying here, Adrian, I hope so.
Well, yeah, I think for a lot of people, it may be that they would want to digest the survey instrument and possibly visit the website for the resource directory.
Yes.
I can probably put that in the chat, so at least they get a sense of what is possible. So the current ONRTIP resource library, the link is also in the chat. So I trust that folks will be able to visit it, complete the assessment survey, and give us some feedback on those matters. As I mentioned, there is also the stakeholder mapping consultation we had in February, and persons can still participate via that mapping survey. So I will share that in the chat again for those who may have come in a little later. Okay. So if no one has any further questions or comments, thank you so very much for participating in this consultation. You can get in touch with ONRTIP through the survey instrument as well, Diahann, and reach out with any questions that you may have to ensure that there's perfect clarity going forward. Diahann, any last words?
No, just to say, as I started out, to express thanks for the stakeholders who took the time to join us this afternoon or morning, depending on where you're joining from, and to say that it certainly is indicative of their interest in anti-human trafficking work. And we really look forward to receiving their feedback and also being messengers, if you will, as they spread the word that this survey is being administered and that the feedback is critical to the comprehensive nature of the hub, which we really think would be very, very high on the priority list so that it can be very inclusive of the various realities across the region. So really just to say thanks, and we look forward to receiving the information and to you spreading the word abroad so that we can have additional responses. Thank you.
And thank you as well, Diahann, you and Colleen, for the great work that you're doing. So I will leave it there a couple of minutes before we are scheduled to close off. So everyone, enjoy the remainder of your afternoon. Please take good care of yourselves. That's one of the things we are emphasizing here at the Coalition. Practice self-care. There's far too much happening all around you. So make sure you take good care of yourselves, not just for the sake of those for whom and with whom you work, but especially for your families and your loved ones, because you're important. Yeah. All right, then. Have a great time, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thanks, Adrian.